December 15th, 1978, backstage at the Electric Ballroom in Minneapolis. Prince Rogers Nelson stood frozen in the narrow hallway, his entire body trembling uncontrollably. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the frigid Minnesota air seeping through the club's cracked walls. In his right hand, he clutched a wireless microphone so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Through the thin door separating him from the stage, he could hear 200 people growing restless, their conversations becoming louder, more impatient. "Where's Marcus?" someone shouted from the crowd. "We want Spectrum." Prince closed his eyes and tried to steady his breathing. Marcus Williams, Spectrum's charismatic lead singer, had stormed out 30 minutes ago after a heated argument with the band. The golden boy who dominated Minneapolis's underground music scene for 3 years was gone, leaving behind only angry words and a microphone that now felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in Prince's shaking hand. David Chen, Spectrum's brilliant guitarist, appeared in the doorway. His face was pale, his usually perfect hair disheveled. "Prince, man, I don't know if we can do this. Maybe we should cancel the show." Prince looked up, his dark eyes blazing with something that made David take a step back. "No." His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of 2 years of watching from the shadows. "I can do this." What David didn't know was that this moment had been building inside Prince since the first night he'd discovered Spectrum. Every rejection, every closed door, every person who told him he was too young, too weird, too different had led to this single moment. Tonight, either his dreams would die in front of 200 people, or something extraordinary would be born. But to understand what was about to happen on that December night, you need to know about the boy who'd been living two completely different lives. September 1976. Prince was 18 years old and officially enrolled at Minneapolis Community College, studying music theory during the day. His father, John Nelson, a jazz musician who'd never quite made it big, insisted that Prince get a proper education. "Music is fine as a hobby," John would say, "but you need something to fall back on." What John didn't know was that Prince had no intention of falling back on anything. While other students were cramming for exams or hanging out at campus parties, Prince was living a double life that would have shocked anyone who knew the quiet, shy boy who sat in the back of every classroom. By day, Prince Rogers Nelson was invisible. He wore simple clothes, kept his head down, and rarely spoke unless directly addressed. His professors barely knew his name. His classmates thought he was just another kid trying to get through school. But when the sun set over Minneapolis, everything changed. 3 nights a week, a mysterious figure would slip into the Electric Ballroom, the warehouse, or Sam's place. He always arrived alone, always wore dark clothes, always positioned himself in the same spot near the back where the shadows were deepest. He never danced, never socialized, never even bought a drink. He just watched with an intensity that made people uncomfortable. His target was always the same: Spectrum, Minneapolis's hottest underground band. Spectrum was everything Prince dreamed of becoming. David Chen's guitar work was innovative and technically brilliant, blending rock, funk, and jazz in ways that left audiences speechless. Tony Rodriguez behind the drums played with a precision and power that could make your chest vibrate from across the room. But it was Marcus Williams who commanded the stage like he owned it. Tall, handsome, with a voice that could seduce angels or summon demons. Marcus was everything Prince thought a rock star should be. Night after night, Prince watched them perform. He memorized every song, every guitar lick, every drum fill, every stage movement. He studied Marcus's techniques, the way he worked the crowd, how he used the microphone as both an instrument and a weapon. Most importantly, Prince began to understand what they were missing. For all their musical brilliance, Spectrum played it safe. Their performances were polished but predictable. Marcus was charismatic but conventional. They were very, very good, but they weren't transcendent. They weren't otherworldly. And Prince knew with a certainty that burned in his chest like swallowed fire, that he could make them better. The first time Prince tried to approach them backstage, Tony Rodriguez laughed out loud. "Kid, you look like you're 12 years old. Come back when you're old enough to drink." The second time, David Chen was more polite but equally dismissive. "Thanks for the suggestions, man. But we've been doing this for a while. We know what we're doing." The third time, Marcus Williams didn't even let him finish speaking. Look, whoever you are, we're not looking for groupies with opinions. If you want to help the band, buy a t-shirt and tell your friends to come to the shows. Each rejection hurt, but Prince kept coming back. Something inside him refused to give up. He knew these three musicians were special, but he also knew they were incomplete. They just couldn't see it yet. Each dismissal only strengthened his resolve, fueled the fire burning inside him that whispered, "Your time will come." Have you ever known something so deeply, so completely, that no amount of rejection could shake your certainty? Have you ever felt like you were watching your own destiny play out in front of you, just beyond your reach? By spring of 1977, Prince had become a fixture at Spectrum shows. The band members had grown accustomed to seeing him in his usual spot, always watching, always listening. They'd begun to acknowledge him with nods or waves, but they still didn't take him seriously. How could they? He was just a kid, barely 20, who never said much and looked like a strong wind might blow him away. But Prince was learning. Every night, he absorbed something new about performance, about stage presence, about the mysterious alchemy that transforms musicians into legends. He began to understand that technical skill, while important, was only part of the equation. The real magic happened in the space between the music and the audience. In those moments when time stopped and everyone in the room became part of something larger than themselves. Meanwhile, Prince had started writing his own music. Late at night in his childhood bedroom at his father's house, he would sit with his guitar or at the small keyboard his father had bought him for his 16th birthday, crafting songs that sounded like nothing else on Minneapolis radio. His compositions blended the funk he'd grown up hearing from Sly Stone and James Brown with the rock energy of Hendrix and the pop sensibilities of Stevie Wonder. Even then, his musical vision was unlike anything Spectrum was creating. He recorded rough demos on a cheap 4-track recorder, but every time he tried to get them to someone who mattered, the response was the same. Interesting, but not commercial. Too experimental. Doesn't fit any radio format. Kid's got talent, but he needs to pick a genre and stick with it. The music industry wasn't ready for Prince Rogers Nelson, but Prince was getting ready for the music industry. Summer of 1978 brought changes to Minneapolis's music scene. Spectrum was gaining a reputation beyond the local clubs. They'd recorded a single that was getting airplay on KQRS, the city's premier rock station. There was talk of record label interest, maybe even a tour through the Midwest. Success was finally within reach. But success also brought pressure, and pressure exposed the cracks that had always existed beneath Spectrum's polished surface. Marcus Williams had always been temperamental, but his ego was growing along with the band's popularity. He began making demands. His name should be larger on the posters. He should get more solo time. He should have final say over the set lists. David and Tony, who'd been equal partners in the band's creation, found themselves being treated like sidemen. Prince watched this drama unfold from his usual position in the shadows. He could see what the band members themselves couldn't. That Marcus's need to dominate was actually making Spectrum smaller, not larger. A great frontman should elevate everyone around him, not diminish them. Prince had been studying the greatest performers in rock history, and he understood that the most powerful stage presence came not from ego, but from the ability to channel something larger than yourself. The explosion came December 15th, 3 hours before Spectrum's biggest show of the year. Marcus stood in the Electric Ballroom's dressing room, shouting about arrangements and stage positioning. "I'm the front man. People come to see me. You guys are just backup." David, normally diplomatic, reached his breaking point. "We started this together, Marcus. We're supposed to be partners." "Partners don't carry dead weight," Marcus laughed bitterly. Tony Rodriguez, quiet Tony, stood up. "Get out," he said simply. Marcus stormed out, slamming the door. David and Tony sat in sudden silence. "What do we do now?" David asked. Before Tony could answer, soft knocking. Prince Rogers Nelson stood in the hallway, wearing his usual black clothes. "I heard about Marcus," Prince said quietly. David sighed. "Yeah, word travels fast. I could sing tonight, if you want." Tony laughed, not unkindly. "Prince, we appreciate it, but I know all your songs. Every word, every harmony. I've been watching you for 2 years. They'd always known Prince attended their shows, wondered why this quiet kid was so devoted. Have you ever performed before? David asked. Prince's silence was answer enough. Give me 5 minutes, Prince said. 5 minutes with a microphone. If I can't do it, I'll leave forever. But if I can, maybe we can create something none of us could create alone. David looked at his watch. 25 minutes until showtime. The venue was full, the opening act from Chicago was warming up, and they had no lead singer. Their options were limited. Cancel the show and disappoint everyone, or give this strange, quiet boy a chance to prove himself. What would you do? Would you trust your biggest opportunity to someone you'd never even heard sing? Would you risk everything on pure instinct? Okay, David said finally. 5 minutes. Prince nodded and stepped into the dressing room. Tony handed him the wireless microphone, the same one Marcus had used to command stages across Minneapolis. In Prince's small hands, it looked enormous, like a weapon too powerful for someone his size to wield. What do you want us to play? David asked, picking up his guitar. Prince closed his eyes for a moment, thinking. When he opened them again, David saw something there that made his breath catch. The shy, nervous boy was still there, but something else was awakening behind his eyes. Something vast and hungry and absolutely certain of itself. Start with Electric Storm, Prince said, referring to one of Spectrum's most challenging songs, a 7-minute epic that showcased every member's technical skills. But play it like you mean it this time. Play it like your life depends on it. David plugged in his guitar and looked at Tony, who settled behind his drum kit with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. This was either going to be a disaster or something extraordinary. There was no middle ground. Tony counted off. 1, 2, 3, 4. David's guitar exploded into Electric Storm with new intensity. Tony's drums answered with precision and power. Then Prince began to sing. The transformation was instantaneous. The shy boy disappeared completely. In his place stood someone who moved like electricity made flesh, whose voice could caress one moment and shatter souls the next. Prince didn't just sing, he inhabited the words. His voice soared through registers Marcus never attempted, shifting from tender whispers to powerful wails. It wasn't just technical skill that left them speechless. It was the presence, the way Prince filled the tiny room with tangible energy. When the song ended, they stood in absolute silence, breathing heavily, knowing something fundamental had changed. David set down his guitar with hands that were actually trembling. "My God," he whispered, "where did that come from?" Prince smiled, and for the first time in 2 years of watching him, David saw genuine joy on his face. "It's always been there," Prince said softly. "I was just waiting for the right moment to let it out." Tony stepped out from behind his drums, shaking his head in amazement. "We need to get you on that stage right now before this wears off." "It won't wear off," Prince said with quiet certainty. "This is who I really am. Everything else was just practice." 20 minutes later, David Chen walked onto the stage of the Electric Ballroom and faced 200 disappointed faces. The audience had come to see Spectrum with Marcus Williams, and word had already spread that Marcus was gone. People were demanding refunds, heading for the exits, making their displeasure known with boos and catcalls. David raised his hand for quiet and somehow got it. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the microphone, "tonight is going to be different than what you expected. Marcus Williams is no longer with the band, but I want to introduce you to someone who's been part of our audience for 2 years. Someone who knows our music better than we do. Someone who's going to show you what Spectrum was always supposed to sound like." A murmur of curiosity rippled through the crowd. In the shadows at the side of the stage, Prince stood perfectly still, no longer trembling, no longer uncertain. He was exactly where he belonged. "Ladies and gentlemen," David continued, "please welcome Prince Rogers Nelson." Prince stepped into the spotlight, and 200 people fell silent. They saw a small, slender young man in simple black clothes, holding a microphone like it was the most natural thing in the world. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Tony's drums exploded into the opening of Electric Storm. David's guitar screamed to life, and Prince opened his mouth and changed everything. What followed was not just a concert, it was a revelation. For 90 minutes, Prince commanded that stage like he'd been born to it. He sang with a power and range that left the audience gasping. He moved with a sensuality and grace that hypnotized everyone in the room. He connected with each person individually while somehow addressing them all as one collective soul. By the third song, people weren't just watching, they were witnessing. By the seventh song, grown men were crying. By the time Prince launched into the final number, a blazing 15-minute epic that showcased every facet of his extraordinary abilities, the entire audience was on their feet, screaming their appreciation for something they'd never seen before and might never see again. When the last note faded, the electric ballroom erupted in the kind of applause reserved for religious experiences. People were embracing strangers, tears streaming down their faces, everyone trying to process what they just witnessed. Prince stood center stage, microphone in his hand, and for the first time in his life, he felt complete. The boy who'd been living two different lives had finally become one person, one artist, one force of nature that could transform any room he entered. As the applause continued, Prince leaned into the microphone one final time. "Thank you," he said simply. "My name is Prince Rogers Nelson, and this is just the beginning." And he was right. Within 6 months, the band had signed a recording contract. Within a year, they were touring nationally. Within 2 years, Prince had outgrown Minneapolis, Minnesota, and eventually any stage that could contain him. But it all began on that December night in 1978, when a shy boy grabbed a microphone and revealed the legend that had been waiting inside him all along. Years later, David Chen would be asked about that night in countless interviews. His answer was always the same. "We thought we were doing Prince a favor by letting him sing. We had no idea he was about to save our lives and change music forever." Sometimes the person you least expect to succeed is exactly the person the world has been waiting for. So what about you? What microphone has been waiting for you to pick it up? What stage is calling your name? What legend is sleeping inside you, waiting for the right moment to wake up and transform not just your life, but the lives of everyone around you? The answer might be closer than you think. Sometimes all it takes is 5 minutes and the courage to let the world see who you really are.